We have Grandmaster Daniil Dubov coming in for the game. There he is in his famous Balenciaga jacket, Balenciaga sweater. As he adjusts all his pieces, he is playing with the black pieces against Nihal Sarin. And look at Daniil there. What a tournament he is playing. And Nihal Sarin arrives in his jacket. Uh, Daniil has been unbeaten in this tournament. Can you believe it? At the World Blitz, this is the 18th round, and he has played players like Caruana, Nordirbeck, MVL, and so many strong players in this tournament. And yet he's unbeaten, which just goes to show what a class act he is. For 17 rounds, no losses. Meanwhile, Nihal Sarin has had his shares of ups and downs. He lost the first game of the day to Gukesh, but then has come back very strongly in the day by beating SL Narayanan, Amar Elham, and Sanal Wahab. So right now Nihal is in the flow, and this will be a super exciting clash. The last time they played each other at World Blitz, or maybe it was World Rapid, there was an insane checkmate that happened. And look at Nihal there. He is just having his hands on his eyes. He's trying to get ready for the clash. And Nihal will be looking for his revenge here. He has the white pieces. Dubov has black. The time control is 3 minutes plus 2 seconds increment, a handshake. And this, dear friends, is the ChessBase mobile app recap of the day. Get your ChessBase mobile app now from the link in the description. E4, C5, the Sicilian. Knight to F3, D6, Knight C3, Knight F6. And Nihal plays a check, Bishop D7 and Queen E2. This is something that Nihal has played before. He has roughly already 5 games in the database with this move, Queen E2. So he's well prepared. Daniil Dubov pauses a bit. He's trying to think what to do. He plays his knight to C6. Nihal chops it off. Bishop takes and plays pawn to D4. A line that Nihal seems to know very well. Knight takes D4, keeping an eye on the bishop on C6. Now, Dubov, well, he can continue with E5. If you try to save your bishop here with bishop D7, you've wasted too much time. I can simply go bishop G5. So he goes Queen B6. He puts pressure on the knight. So Nihal takes, Queen takes C6, and now bishop G5. A very nice move, trying to put pressure on the knight. You may want to even take this knight at some point to double the pawns. So he goes E6, bishop takes F6, G takes F6, and long castle. So essentially what Nihal is saying to Daniil is that my remaining knight is much better than your bishop. King to B1. And now A6 played. Black structure is very solid, but at the same time you cannot play D5, E5 or F5 here, it seems. F4 played by Nihal. And Daniil has a choice now, short or long. He goes long castle, which is safer, I guess. And now brings his rook to the center of the board. He plays rook to D7. And maybe he wants to play king B8 and rook C8. But F5, a very nice move, keeping the pressure on the E6 pawn. H5 played so that the queen doesn't come to H5. Queen F3. Nihal making space for the knight to move to D4 or F4. And already Daniil Dubov is under big pressure. His rook cannot move from H8 because the H5 pawn is hanging. The E6 pawn is under pressure. He goes rook to C7, trying to put pressure on C2 to stop the knight from moving. And Nihal can go maybe rook D2. Well, he's going for the queen. He plays queen H3, putting pressure here. Queen D7, and now knight goes to E2. He wants knight f4. Beautiful maneuver, putting pressure on e6. And if you push e5, the knight will simply jump to d5 when the knight would be superior to the bishop. So Dubov now has to do some thinking. He has a worse position. He's also almost a minute down on the clock. He takes the white pawn, swivels it in his hand. Can he save this position is the question. Any advance, let's say if you play e5 here, I'll simply go back knight c3 and put my knight here. If you take here, that's terrible, ef5, and again the d5 square gets weakened. So big problem. And if you move the rook, this is hanging. How do you continue? And Dubov down to 1 minute 58 seconds. He goes bishop d8. Okay, so he's getting ready. If knight f4, he wants rook to e8, but then he might lose h5. He plays rook e8 and he's okay with losing that pawn, it seems. Nihal goes and snatches the pawn. He now has a passer on the h file. Rook c6. Dubov needs to create something here. Maybe the bishop coming out on b6 or a5. Just hassling the position a bit. And you already can start pushing the h pawn down the board. Nihal is thinking here. Not so sure, not so certain. He comes queen f3 and now king to b8. Well, it's simple to just start pushing the pawns, which is what Nihal does. g4 and rook to c4. Keeping an eye on the fourth rank. Queen comes to d3, attacking the rook. The rook moves back. And now Nihal can go h4. Step by step, Nihal improving his position. He also has a lead on the clock. He should keep it. He's getting a bit nervous, I feel, because he has such a good position. And generally against the super solid Dubov, it's never easy. He goes knight to h5. I wonder where the knight's going from h5. Rook g8. h3 played. Just calmly keeping everything controlled. And bishop to e7. Still waiting. Dubov has nothing more to do than wait here. It's up to Nihal. The onus is on him to find ways to improve. He takes, pawn takes, and rook f1. He finds a new weakness to attack. The f6 pawn. Maybe rook f2. The other rook comes in and he tries to put pressure here. Rook to c8. Trying to hassle the c2 pawn. And Nihal goes c3. The queen goes to d8. And now king a1. Just prophylaxis. a5 played. And h4, a4, a3. Stopped in its tracks. Rook jumps into c4. Black's moves slightly getting easier to play because Dubov has things under control, at least here. e6 pawn under attack, queen d7. And now knight to g6. Putting pressure on the bishop. And then threatening to take and take here. He goes d5. Now it's time to take the bishop because you don't want the bishop to be sacrificing itself on a3 and then creating all the mess on the board. Nihal has had things under control for quite some time, but he has to calculate. Now knight e7, queen e7, ed, rook c3. Does anything work here? Ed, rook c3, because if I take this, queen check, but d6 intermezzo. Okay, he takes ed. Here, sorry, first he takes knight e7, queen e7, ed, rook takes g4. And now queen f3, attacking the rook and the pawn. f5 played. d6, pushes forward h5, and now already white is better. Rook h8, rook h1, and he plays rook to h6. The queen moves in, trying to attack here f4, and he pushes the pawn forward, pawn to f3. And the rook comes in, attacking the pawn here. He goes queen g7 and takes. In the rook endgame, now white is 2 pawns up, and you can notice both players down to their 8 and 7 seconds on the clock. Rook g5, defending as well as attacking. c4, he breaks it, takes, check, and now Nihal gets the key pawn. The rooks have been traded here. Rook takes, and Nihal is pawn up. It's still a bit complex to convert this, but it should be okay. King b1, e5, he comes back. Dubov has got a spring in his step. He pushes the pawn forward. b4, a big mistake here by Nihal. Rook c8, he tries to bring his king up, but already this is trouble time. e3, pushed. The e pawn is very strong. He attacks here, defends. King comes to c3. If you take king d6 now, I want to try and win this pawn. He takes it, king d6. And now the problem is a4. The a3 pawn was weak. So he's attacked this. a5. Check. Goes here, he attacks the pawn. Rook b1. Rook goes back and defends it. He brings his king in. The king comes back to c7. Unbelievably, Dubov has managed to snatch a draw here from the jaws of defeat. King b7. Nihal with just 2 seconds plays rook b3. Rook comes to e5. Rook b4. Needs to go back to e7 or e8. Blunders with king b8, a6. And now he's winning with b6. And Nihal is winning once again. Takes here. And you can see Dubov unhappy. He doesn't express much. But Nihal might be scoring the first defeat for Dubov in this tournament. And now he has 2 pawns here. Goes rook. And the checks start pouring in. He comes to c6. And now you block it. Rook a1. Sometimes these corner pawns can be tricky. But a7 and b7. And now king c7. And he's queening and checkmate. And Dubov resigns. Nihal, look at him there. He is like as if he's just run a marathon. He's so exhausted with this. And Daniil Dubov, well, super solid grandmaster, loses the game. And with that, a chance to make it to the top 4. Nihal Sarin, what a guy. Scoring 4 wins in a row. And has somehow magically kept his chance to make it to top 4. Shaking his head there. But clearly Nihal, one of the best blitz players in the world of chess. This endgame is very instructive because at this point Nihal is winning. But after e4, he pushed his pawn to b4. And what could be more natural than pushing his pawns? But with this move, he weakens the a3 square. And that's the reason why it becomes a draw. The right way to win was to play rook d4. To put pressure here. And if e3, you have rook e4. And if rook e5, you can play your king to c2 and bring your king here. And let's say a nice line could be rook e8, rook d2, defending here and planning to switch here. Rook e5, king c3, e3, and then eventually white just wins here. But when he played b4, the problem now is, and it's a very beautiful draw, because I go king b2, e3, the a3 pawn is weakened. And he defends. King c3, king d6. And if I go to king to d3, there's rook a8 attacking here. I have to defend. And then the black king comes in and it's a draw. So somehow I can't progress with my pawns. So he played a4, rook a8, a5, and now you can see that these pawns have become such that they can be blockaded. So first a check, and now a very nice move, rook b8. Rook comes here, you defend the pawn. He goes king e2, because if b5 here, then e2, king d2, and king c7, just like in the game. So king e2, he goes here, b5, and now a very good move, king b7. If you push here, I settle down here. If you push here, I settle down here. So he makes a waiting move, and now another excellent move, rook e5. If you take my pawn, I'll take your pawn. Rook b4, waiting, and here Dubov had to wait with rook e8, because if b6 now, you can settle down on a6. If a6, you have king b6, and it's equal. But he went king b8 somehow in his hurry, and he allowed a6, and that was very important, because after king a7 to blockade is b6, very important move, and you win. So you needed the rook on the last rank to stop this pawn, or on the 7th rank, but he did not. He kept his rook here, and Nihal managed to win. All these years, ChessBase was a software that needed to be installed on your computer. But now, ChessBase has come up with a mobile app. It's called the ChessBase mobile app, and it is available both on Android and iPhone. With the app, you can now prepare against an opponent. You can get access to more than 11 million games in your database. You can create a new game, analyze it. The premium users get access to the fastest cloud engines, and then you can save your analysis. What's more is that the app is completely free. If you want to stay connected to serious chess preparation on the go, then the ChessBase mobile app is for you.